A new movie from Saskatchewan filmmaker Lowell Dean opens in theaters this weekend. The director behind Wolf Cop has created something of a love letter to old school wrestling in the late 80s and satanic cult horror. It's called Dark Match, and Lowell joins us now from Toronto. Congrats on premiere day.
Thank you. Very excited to finally be here. It's been a long road, as it always is with indie films.
Okay, first things first, hard-hitting question. Those of us that grew up in the 80s, we had a favorite wrestler. Who was that for you?
In the 80s, my favorite wrestler was Junkyard Dog.
Oh, I did not expect that. Why?
He was like, pun intended, the underdog, and he had a cool chain, and I liked his red spandex. So you'll see a lot of those inspirations in our lead character, Misbehave.
Is there a connection, do you think, between fanatic fans of wrestling and a cult? I know people aren't dying, but I feel like there might be some sort of commentary in this movie on celebrity life.
I think there's a lot of commentary in this film. I think I chose to tell this story in the world of 80s wrestling because it's a little removed. But I mean, I think we are living in the era of cult culture. I think we're living in the era of people doing what sometimes crazy people say. So I loved making this film, and getting to do wrestling was just the icing on the cake in the story.
Talk to me about writing this. Where did you start with it versus where you ended up? What was the goal?
The goal was, I mean, it's hard to discuss without spoilers because this movie has some interesting stuff in the last act. But the goal was just to make a movie about how wrestling is a cult. I was someone who loved wrestling when I was a kid in the 80s, and I kind of forgot about it. And I went to High Impact Wrestling in Regina, which is the local troupe. And I was immediately sucked back in. The passion, the insanity, not just of the performers, but of the fans, was my light bulb moment of wrestling is a cult. So as someone who's always on the lookout for my next horror idea, it was born in that moment, and it was just a fight to bring it to life.
What's the connection between wrestling and horror? I mean, obviously, aside from your movie.
I don't think there's an explicit connection. I think it's just like I'm always looking for horror in everyday life. And I think being at a wrestling match and seeing how people were, my brain just wandered to, man, everyone talks about wrestling being fake. What if in this night it wasn't? And that was what got me excited.
It's a little wild when you think about how, in a world of wrestling and professional fighting, how people are really cheering for someone to be like beaten within an inch of their life.
I agree. It's super weird.
So, what's reception been like so far?
I think reception's been pretty good. I mean, I've realized I often set myself up for a certain kind of reaction, making movies about like a werewolf cop or a wrestling satanic cult. These are not always mainstream things. So, but I think if people have an acquired taste for the bizarre or the weird or the supernatural, I think it's going to speak to them. And it's certainly not boring. I don't think it's going to feel like you're doing homework watching these movies. I think Dark Match is honestly deep down just meant to be fun. So if you want to see a crazy movie where people fight to the death, this is it. And if you're, a highbrow snob like I am sometimes myself, maybe you'll find something else underneath.
Okay, so you wrote the movie, you directed the movie. I have to ask, you were a wrestling fan. Did you get in the ring?
I, I'm far too fragile for that. I got in the ring just to watch them shoot it, and I don't think I did a single move. I would have been, I had a backache just from making the movie, and I wasn't even doing anything these actors or stunt performers or wrestlers were doing.
I was reading about Chris Jericho's connection to, obviously, his connection to wrestling and to horror. What was it like working with him on this one?
It was great working with Chris Jericho. I mean, we knew when we're making a horror wrestling film, if you don't have at least one superstar wrestler, people might question the legitimacy. So we really went after Jericho. Thankfully, he said yes. And I mean, wrestlers are often wonderful people. I think like they are unsung heroes of the circuit. These people, you don't get to where that you are if you're a jerk. He has to go. He's been everywhere. Like he has stories of being in Estevan and Moose Jaw and going and doing shows all across Saskatchewan and all over Canada. So I think there's a humility that comes with this kind of sport and art form. And I think because of it, he, like me, knows it's a gift to get to make a movie like this. And when he's on set, he's just happy to be there.
I caught the Moose Jaw reference when I was watching the screener.
Good.
You're going to be back in Regina for a special screening soon. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I'm in Toronto right now for the premiere, and but it's not just Toronto. This movie's playing all across Canada. And we're trying to hit all the major cities and give them love with Q&As featuring cast and crew and producers. So I will be in Regina on Tuesday the 4th, and it's at the North Galaxy Cineplex, and we'll be screening it there. And it'll be a chance to do a Q&A. And if anybody's a crazy wrestling fan or horror fan, that's the moment to give us the hard-hitting questions.
We know that the film industry is in kind of fits and starts right now in Saskatchewan. You filmed Dark Match in Edmonton. Your last movie, Die Alone, was filmed in Regina. Is there a future for the industry and for you in Saskatchewan?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I shot Dark Match in Edmonton because the production company was there and their passion was growing the Alberta film industry in Edmonton. You've got to go where the money is sometimes for films, but Die Alone, which was shot after, shot in Saskatchewan because of the new incentive that Creative Saskatchewan has. So I think if there's a will, there's a way. And right now it definitely seems like there is a passion and an excitement around creating a film industry in Saskatchewan. So it's part of the reason I moved back, and I hope my next film is in Saskatchewan.
What's next for Lowell Dean?
Sleep and writing something new. So I'm trying to get some other things off the ground, but time will tell.
Is this going to be like a rom-com horror? Is that what's next?
You know, I will say one of the things I'm writing that right now doesn't have anybody getting killed. It's crazy, but this one had enough of that. So it's I'm writing a family drama and an action movie and some other things. So we'll see.
Well, thanks so much for your time. I know you're very busy with the premiere. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Always happy to chat some.